In this video, we are going to talk about ETL versus ELT. ETL is a pretty popular term. I hope you guys are already aware of this term, where ETL stands for extract, transform, and load, right? So, the modern days, we are moving towards ELT, which is like extract, load, and then transform as needed. So we'll be discussing about why it is changing from ETL to ELT and what are the advantages of moving towards ELT from ETL. So what is ETL? ETL process encompasses data extraction, transformation, and loading, right? So data is extracted from sources that are not optimized for analytics, moved to a central host and optimized for analytics. So in an application, like the data is going to be all over and then its own format, and then it's going to be like supporting their respective application programs, right? So it will be in their own structure. It's not really optimized for analytics. But if you want to run analytics and derive some value out of it, then you should be able to bring it into a certain format, like create certain sorts of data model encompassing facts and dimensions, so that you'll be able to run some analytics on top of it. So the ETL is the process which will bring the data from the various source systems into a centralized place where you can optimize it for analytics, right? The extract process and steps followed to achieve this might different it will be different depending on the ETL tool and technology you choose, right? So there are a lot of tools available in the market, and you guys know that ETL developer is a pretty popular role, and then whoever is experienced with the tools and technologies available in the market were in pretty high demand. Like few years back, ETL tools and technologies were one of the pretty hot job market, right? So like you can use any ETL tool like a data stage or Informatica, like any other ETL tools available, but the end result is going to be same. Whatever the tool you use, the end result is you need to follow the same steps: extract from the various data sources, and then apply the transformations based on the business requirements, and then load the data into your target database where it is optimized for analytics, and your business intelligence tools will be sitting on top of your data and then running dashboards and visualizations on top of it, right? So this is the traditional ETL process, where you will be extracting a lot of event data, transactional data from various different applications. You'll extract them and then drop it into a staging area where you'll be transforming your data based on your business requirements. The transformation layer is the pretty heavy layer. A lot of heavy lifting is done on this layer, where you'll be trying to apply all the business rules and transformations in order to load it into the target, which is optimized for analytics, right? So there will be a data model which will be given by a data modeler. So you just have to populate the data model based on your source system data, and then you will analyze the data in the business intelligence tool layer. This is the traditional ETL process. So what's the modern ELT process? You can modern ETL or ELT process, right? So in this case, whatever the data you extract, you just directly load it into a platform, probably a data lake, right? So in the previous videos, we saw about data warehouse versus data lake, right? So data warehouse is something which you have to bring in the data into a certain structure and format and then populate into the data warehouse. But in case of data lake, we learned that we can directly drop the data as is into the data lake and then analyze the data as and when it is needed. So we also discussed about schema and write versus schema and read, right? So data warehouse is more like a schema and write architecture, where you have to bring in your data into a certain structure in order to write it into data warehouse. But in case of data lake, you just have to load everything as is, just extract it and load it into the data lake, and then you can transform it as and when it is required, and then you can analyze them using whatever the tools, modern tools available, right? The modern analysis tools are pretty heavy, and then they can perform heavy transformation on the fly. So you really don't have to waste your time transforming all the data and then loading into your target. Instead, you can extract data from all your data sources and then drop it into your data lake, and then depending on whichever the data you want to process, you can transform them on the fly and then analyze them on the fly to derive any insights. So you will save a lot of time doing the transformation of the huge amount of data in this layer. Instead, just extract everything and load. You save a lot of time in the transformation. So you may not be using all the data you extracted for your analytical purposes. So whichever data you want to transform, you can just pull it on the fly. And then the latest analytical tools are capable of performing any type of transformation on the fly by saving a lot of time in the process. and then there is a lot of hassle that is being saved in the transformation layer because you are able to load the data as is into your data lake. So when you talk about ETL or ELT, whatever, right? So you have to have certain critical components to it, right? So you should be able to perform a change data capture. So what is a change data capture? So when the source system is sending you data, right? If there are any changes in the source application, you should have a way to update them in your target. Say, for example, you get like 100 records on day one, and then you load the 100 records into your target, right? And then the day two, you get another 100 records, out of which 50 of them may be an update to the previously sent 100 records, and then 50 of them may be brand new inserts. So the CDC process should be able to identify which are the updates and which are the inserts. And then it should be able to apply the updates on the existing target database and then insert any new records that is coming, right? So this is the CDC process, and there are a lot of different types and ways of CDC you can do, like we discussed, like type 1, type 2, the different types of CDC processes, depending on whether you want to maintain the history of the data or not. But your ETL tool should be capable of taking care of this requirement. And it should also be able to handle multiple source formats, right? Your source systems can have like multiple different types of source formats like XML, JSON, CSV, or like log files. You can have any types of source format. Your ETL tool, whatever you are using, should be able to read all those source formats and then able to transform them and convert them into required format and store it into target. And then there should be fault tolerance built on your tool. So in case of any failures, it should be able to recover by itself, and then it should not result in any sort of data loss. It should be able to perform the operations without any data loss or failures. Even if it fails, it should be able to recover and then address the problem accordingly. Low latency. So depending on the volume of data that is flowing in, right, you cannot take forever for processing. There should be acceptable timelines where you should be able to process your data without any latency and then serve the ETL platform. Scalability, depending on the volume of records, if it is increased in the source system, your application ETL tool should be capable of scaling up depending on the data load you get from your source system. Accuracy is very important because whatever the ETL tool is going to populate in the target, the dashboards and business intelligence tools are going to be sitting on top of them, producing results which will be reviewed by the top management, and they are going to make some decisions which can affect $1 million for the company, right? So they have to make $1 million decisions out of the data analytics we are going to provide. So we need to make sure you're accounting for accuracy, and then proper data quality is in place at each stage to make sure that we are representing the right numbers into the target environment, right? These are the any tool you choose in your for your ETL purpose, you should make sure that these critical components are addressed. So this picture will provide you a reiterate what is ETL versus ELT. So extract from your data sources, and then you will just extract only the presumably important data, right? Because you have to transform and then put it into target. So you won't extract everything that is available from the source system. You will try to identify your data sources, and whichever you feel it is important to supply your dashboards, you will extract only those data, put them into staging area, and then you will apply the business transformation rules, and then you load it into the data warehouse. And from here, you will filter whichever is needed for an analytics, and then supply it to your analytics environment, right? So every stage, it will just filter the presumably important data only getting passed through each layer so that you can avoid the data processing for huge amount of data. On the other hand, in ELT, you really don't have to filter any data because nowadays, since you are getting a lot of data, and then the companies want to analyze everything they get so that they can get like detailed insights into whatever that is happening in the application, right? So every data all the data can be loaded, extracted, and loaded into your data lake, and from there you can use leverage Hadoop or any other kind of processing heavy applications where you can take the compute near the data, you can perform all your transformations, and then you can supply them into analytics. You can also replace Hadoop with like latest cloud computing technologies in order to analyze the data on the fly to populate your analytics dashboards, right? That's the primary difference between ETL and ELT. So in comparison, to understand ETL versus ELT, what are the advantages and disadvantages, right? So ETL, it uses the staging area, which costs extra load and extra time. So every time you extract the data from your source application, you have to stage them into a staging area in case of ETL, and then again you have to load them into the target database. But on the other hand, in ELT, you can load only once into the target system. That's it. Extract from all the data sources, load it into the target, and use your analytical tools in order to perform your analytics on the fly transformations. Right? As data grows, time taken in the transformation layer increases, right? Because the transformation layer will become more heavy when the data grows. That takes a lot of time in the processing of the data. But in case of ELT, processing speed is not dependent on the size of data, right? Because you are going to put all the data into your data lake, and then you are going to select only the data that is required for an analytical platform. So whatever the data amount of data that is increasing from the source system, it doesn't affect your performance. ETL is a high maintenance system because you always have to make choice on what data to load, what data sources to chase for, how to extract it, how to bring it into the structure of populating your database and everything, right? But in case of ELT, it is low maintenance. All data is always available in your ELT platform. And then in ETL, predefined set of scripts to create views, reports, or dashboards. There are like predefined reports and dashboards that run on a weekly or a monthly basis, right? But in case of ELT, you can run a lot of ad hoc reports, ad hoc views, and then you can just have a low cost to build and maintain, because the latest cloud computing analytical tools are like just charges you based on how much of data you scan in the background. So it's really ad hoc basis. You can use this layer, and then you can save a lot of money also. And ETL does not support a data lake, which is like pretty much needed in the modern applications. But if you use ELT, it'll enable the usage of data lake, which includes unstructured data also. That's an added advantage, right? And then ETL, there are like fixed set of tables and then fixed timelines to process your data. But in case of ELT, it's always ad hoc, agile, and flexible. Since all the data is available for you in the target platform, you can just play around with any data source. It's not cost effective, ETL, for small and medium businesses. But in case of ELT, it's cost effective and scalable to all business sizes. So if you are a small business, you can still start with your data lake, cloud computing platforms, which is a pay by use platform. You can do ELT on it. And then depending on your business scales up, you can automatically increase your scalability, and then the platform is going to support your demanding business needs, right? So ETL is the technology of past, and ELT is the technology of future. So all the latest applications are following this ELT architecture in order to derive the maximum value. Hope this gives you a good idea about ETL and ELT comparison. That's all I have. Hope you like this video. Thank you.